we go. So how to conduct secondary marketing research, one of our Grow Weekly sessions. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Emily and we'll be happy to help. So to recap on what marketing research is, we did talk about this in the primary research, but for anyone who missed that one, marketing research is a systematic way of collecting and recording and analyzing both qualitative and quantitative data, and mostly for the purpose of helping us market our goods and services, right? The purpose is to discover, analyze how the marketing mix elements are going to affect customer behavior and how do we build our brand. So market versus marketing research, what's the difference, right? They very much are the same, other than market research is really just focused on that product, price, and place. When it comes to marketing, we now get to add in that promotional piece. So how well are we doing it? How does our brand, how is it perceived out there? Are we communicating effectively? And so marketing encompasses everything. So that marketing research really to analyze said so well in this one is the fact that it covers conception, development, and placement, always and continuously. And for the whole idea of that, we have to build brand awareness with the potential to build brand equity. You build brand equity, you actually help to build a valuable business and communicate more effectively with your customers, right? So two types of research: primary is what we covered last time, and secondary is what we're talking about today. So secondary is, just as it says, it's that secondhand information, right? Where primary was firsthand interviews, one-on-ones. Secondary is what's going on out there and what's already been done. So here's a list of some of the secondaries, which we're going to cover off a few more of these coming up. So why do we do secondary research, and for what's the greatest purpose? Now, all of it's to provide insights, but really that secondary research is to help our audience understand our audience better, right? Like just what's going on out there with our customers. And we know that that's really important. We want to do it all the time, but more intentionally sometimes, which is what is formal research. So we also want to grow our business. What new products that's we want to serve. We're going to show an example of this coming up at the end, so stick around for the example. If you're expanding into a new market, if you want to supplement any other research, so if you've already done primary research, right, secondary is validation, supplementary, and it can make it more rich. It's also a little more budget friendly than primary. So if you can't do that primary one-on-one, which can take a lot of time and money, secondary can work as well. It also provides insights for your marketing mix. What are you doing? Are you doing something well? Is there some things you could do better? Helps you audit that marketing audit, right? It's like, okay, we've been running the business for 5 years. Let's see how we're doing. It's a good way to do that, is to do that secondary research. It informs your content strategy or potentially a campaign, helps you understand industry trends, and helps you understand the whole buying process, right? So when you go out and you go, okay, so where are they in the funnel? How are they coming in? How are they searching for us? So there's certain keywords that we should be using. Are they getting stuck? Sophia. Also, so that's part of the secondary research. Then we also potentially can do secondary research to build lists. So marketing supports sales, right? Sales and marketing, the golden team, as I like to call them. So if you are looking for prospects or influencers or want to get an eye on your competition, that secondary research lets you do that. I'm going to show you some places where you can go and find it, but basically it's doing that market scan. And also for researching prospective customers for account-based marketing. Now, if anyone we have a lot of services people. So account-based marketing is where you have your sales process in place and things are happening, but you really know you want to go out you've done some research, you found this company or this this industry that you want to focus on, and you really go in and go, okay, let's niche right down and understand what their needs are, where they are, who's the key decision maker, what's their buying cycle, things like that. There's a lot of that research, and that would be considered secondary research, and it helps you really target your marketing. Very much popular in the B2B space. So another term that is used, secondary marketing research, can also be called desk research, because we can actually sit at our desk and do pretty much all of it, because most of it's online. You may have to go and look in a physical place, but I'm trying to find out what that would be. Most of it really is online. So desk research is another term that is used. And so some of the guiding questions that you want to ask as you jump into this secondary research to help you understand the customer, what it will help explain is where the customer is getting your information. So ask that question. How do they get their questions answered? You know how we often think about an FAQ, and why an FAQ can be quite often very good on a website, because you're answering the questions. Your marketing wants to be working for you, so you don't always have to be answering an email every time. And this is that self-serve piece, and helps you scale and grow and actually serve them well. So how do they get their questions answered, and what are those questions? Also, where are they shopping? What are they thinking? What are they saying? What are they doing? A lot of that comes out of that exercise that we did, the empathy map on the target audiences. So if you haven't seen that one, we did do a session on target audiences. We're going to do more about that, because understanding your customer is really key. And this is why a lot of this information is going to help us as we go into the customer buying journey. So what are they thinking? What are they saying? What are they doing? What motivates them to buy? Are they price motivated? Are they value motivated? Do they want a lot of customer service? So all of these kinds of questions are really important for positioning your brand, but also in the marketing, right? How are you going to market to them? And what challenges do they have? So the next bucket, if you want to call it that, is that competition. So what are the guiding questions we want to ask here? So really, it's kind of like, what's your competition doing in the marketing space? And because marketing is public, secondary research works well, right? You can go out and actually see what your competition is doing. And then you can also investigate or research who is interested in your competition. Why are they interested? What are they interested in? And what kinds of things do they say about your customers? And what are those people buying? Now, what are they buying might be a little bit more difficult, because it may be in behind in the private sessions, but you might be able to, from third party, to see some trends. We're going to figure out the sources, but start with these guiding questions. And then the final bucket is that marketing bucket, right? So it's going internally, what marketing is working for you, what's working well, and why is it working well, analyzing the metrics, and what is the journey our customers are taking in the buying journey, and are they getting stuck somewhere? And then also, so that's very much internal. And then the other research will be to go out and see what those industry trends are, what the current marketing best practices, and what's trending. So those are the guiding questions that starts everything going. And then, so where do we find all this information? It's very high level list. Each of these could take a whole nother session, but I will run through what these sources are. So government databases would be things like the City of Mississauga, right? If you go to their market research link, I think we shared that, it'll be at the internal links at the end. But if you go to a government database, they have a bunch of things that they've collected over time and provided it publicly. And that's a business directory is one of them. Government databases, they're all over, right? Like, so if you do know you're going into a new market, you might want to first start at that government database. Academic databases, many academic organizations have done some research, and they have provided open source databases. Commercial real estate or commercial research is what we typically would maybe call third-party research. And that will be companies like Forrester, Gartner, McKinsey, things that people that often will do research, and their whole business mostly is built around either consulting plus research or just research. So you can go in and either pay for the research up front, or you become a member, or it's a large amount of it is actually free. So you can just go and scan. I know I have so many downloads because that's where a lot of them do the research and use it as lead gen, right? So this is their business to do that. They collect your information and you download it because it takes a lot of time to do research. So those are third-party commercial research that is usually part of their business model, is to make money off of that research. Statista is another one that I use quite often, and it will give you a bunch of market trends. Previous research that you've done would be secondary. So if you've done primary research and you're pulling from it, or you've done research in the past internally, that would be a source that you could go to. Search engines, it's a good one, right? Just type in those questions. If you're trying to figure out who your competition is and what's happening, keywords, use those different search engines. Search trends like Google Trends is another source. Industry research will be specific to your industry, and I couldn't actually speak to every one of those. But for example, the Retail Council of Canada has a bunch of research, right? Because they serve the retail industry. If you're a membership there, they will have those things available. There's also, which doesn't fall under industry research, I think I have that. Oh, business groups. Yeah. So industry, let's just stick with the industry for now. I'll talk about business groups at the bottom. SEO tools will be things like your Moz Pro, your SEMrush, your Ubersuggest. I know we've talked about that a lot in the past. So if you look at the website ones, if you go into those, they'll tell you who your competition is. Now, sometimes it's based on search and it's not always accurate. So like Ubersuggest, if you know who your competition is, you get to actually put in your competition, and then they'll research them. And some of the information they provide is who is linking to the competitor, right? It's like, well, if that company is linking and maybe it's a directory and it's going, wow, it's linking, I can go and actually put my business on that directory. So that's all that secondary research that allows you to be better marketers. That would be considered SEO tools. Brand mention tools, there's a bunch of them. I actually have a resource at the end, but what that allows you to do is to see how often your competitors are being mentioned, how often you are being mentioned, what is the sentiment. In the PR world, we use that term quite often. So is good things being said? Is it neutral, or bad things being said? And you can actually do even a mini research project, like all of this, multiple projects. Like secondary goes constantly, right? And it's easier to do, and you usually have to have a purpose. We're going to talk about the plan at the end, but all of these, you wouldn't do them all at the same time. Marketing trends, I have a whole list for you guys. Always stay on top of this. Like AI is as we know, we've had one of Emily's sessions, right? AI is huge. It's affecting all of us in so many ways, and we need to stay on top of what's happening and how it's affecting our business and how it's affecting our marketing, who we should be, what kind of marketing we should be doing, and even just how are we paying for this? Like, are we still getting the value from our marketing teams? Forums, another good one. Reddit, Quora, go and check it out and figure out what groups you want to be a part of based on some initial insights. Where are your customers hanging out? What are they saying? What questions? Even some of the language that they use. Going, wow, it's very casual. And here I am being very serious. No wonder it's not resonating with me. I need to make some changes. And that's information that's gleaned from your research. Social media, for sure, we know it's our social media, what's going on, but also doing a social media scan. What hashtags are they using? What are they saying? What kind of posts do they like? All of those types of things is part of that secondary research. Business groups is what I mentioned before. There's business groups will be your local chamber, your BNI groups, CFIB, the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. They have a bunch of research as well, and that's some business groups to check out. And then obviously your marketing data. And I touched on that before, but all of the stuff that you're doing is going to help you evaluate and see some potential opportunities. So those are sources. If anyone has more sources that I've missed, please drop them in the chat. I will grab it and we can talk about it afterwards and also add it to the presentation. Here is something someone did. I thought it was one of the best charts I've ever seen. Makes it all of a sudden kind of brings it to light. I haven't gone through all of it, but basically the goals, the objectives of what you're trying to do is on the left. And across the top is your sources and kind of when you would use them, right? So if you're looking for brand perceptions, online forums would be good, and social and search tools. I'd have to go through this and make sure it's exactly what I would probably do, but it's a really good starting point if you want some more quick reference. So like always, as you know, having a plan does help you keep focused and understanding the why you're doing it and understanding the how you do it so that you can use the time wisely and understand how to evaluate it. So similar to primary, you want to know the background, what you're trying to achieve with the goal, who you need to research or understand better, the project timeline, team, and budget. What's your approach going to be, right? What's that strategy? Because you can't do it all. Like it has to match and support your overall goal, to support your background. What methods are you going to use? How are you going to document it and analyze it? And then, as always, the last step is to take that information. Don't just do the research and let it sit there. Make sure you're implementing those changes. So we're going to use an example here. And as always, we use our demo company, which isn't real, Garden Grows, which is just a garden center who sells plants, does landscaping, has a little gift store, all that wonderful stuff. So they've decided that they want to expand into the commercial space, and they're going to offer plant sales to offices and also do landscaping because predominantly they've just done residential. So for a brand positioning, how are they going to position that? We have to understand the background, but we also have to understand the goal and the audiences. So the primary goal of this is to really understand their key competitors, their strengths and weaknesses, and then they're going to actually create this SWOT, right? A strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Because how are they going to position it? They know they want to do this, but they don't know what the competitive landscape is, and they need to make sure it fits with their brand. But where are those other key players in the secondary research, which is why if you're going to go to all this effort and you're going to collect information, you may have multiple goals that you can achieve from this. And while they're doing this, they want to understand a little bit more about what the consumer is doing and also gather some marketing insights. So that covers your background, goal, and audiences because we know we're focused on the competition. Now, project timeline, team, and budget. I know it takes 2 minutes, but really do write it down how you're going to get this to happen. Because if you don't formulate a plan and you just want to sort of do it on the side of your desk, it's really easy as entrepreneurs for us to go, oh, I just don't have time, or you derail your project, or it doesn't stay organized. So have a plan, figure out how you're going to do it. So for them, they need their seasons in the spring. They definitely have to start earlier. So they're going to start in the fall and do it from September to December. And they've decided to hire an intern to make sure it gets done. So they've figured on a salary and some research tools. There may be some other budget line items, but make sure you write it down so you can allocate that budget. Now, the strategy and approach. Remember, we talked about all those guiding questions. Now you get to take some of those questions and really put it down and go, okay, what do I need to figure out? Because having those guiding questions is going to figure out what you're going to search, so you're not just randomly searching items, right? So they need to know who their competitors are, who are the competitors' customers, what do you know about those customers that you share? And are there any gaps? Like, are there some customers that are being underserved? What products and services does the competition sell? How are they selling them? Do they have an advantage in the market? And what is it? Like, are they are really great with customer service? Are they just, so they've been around for a long time and they're well known? Whatever that advantage is, make sure you have eyes on that. What kind of marketing are they doing? What are they doing well? What are people saying about them? We talked about that sentiment. What are some industry statistics and trends in this space? Because that really helps, because just because your competition isn't doing it, doesn't mean, always just look at them, look much broader. So that's where you can look at industry standards, best practices, things like that from the marketing space, and what opportunities are out there, what really is going on that may be missed, because you don't want to jump into this and go and just do what everyone else is doing. You really want to be leading the way and thinking long term. So that would be what we consider the strategy and approach. And then you have to figure out what sources you're going to go to. So commercial real estate, for sure, say retail industry for these guys, because they're retailers. Search engines, search trends, industry research, SEO tools, brand mention, marketing trends, all of those things, absolutely. That's going to be a large part of what you would do for a case like this. Forums, yeah, let's go hang out. Are they? And when I say forums, for something like this, I would think Facebook groups. That would probably be a place. If anyone else has ideas on this too, drop them in the chat. I'm curious on what you guys would say for this, but Facebook groups would be a place I would probably hang out. Now, we're also talking about commercial. So remember, it's not residential. And this happens a lot, right? Like, you're expanding into this, but we're easy to focus going, oh no, we're going back to our residential. It's like, nope, commercial. And so having a plan and having a grid in place for you to drop down the information will be really helpful. It's like, no, where are the commercial people hanging out and who's influencing these people? Like, for example, interior designers would probably be someone that I would start to pay attention to. Landscape designers that are affiliated with garden centers. So where are the interior designers hanging out? Well, probably social media, right? So social media is on there too. What are they saying? What are they doing? What kind of things are they saying they really like? And who are those people, right? So finding out those influencers will be really important. Marketing data, things that you've had that may give you the opportunity to be strong. It's like, if your website is really doing well and you have a lot of people subscribe to your blog, it's like, keep up the engine, right? But so start to leverage those channels. So leverage what you already have and then start to think about where else you need to be. So maybe you actually need to spend more time on LinkedIn because that's where your commercial people are. Or if interior designers are going to be something, then you may end up wanting to be on social. But don't get ahead of yourself. I'm already going, okay, we should be doing this, but we haven't done the research yet. It's very easy to start to do it. And it doesn't mean you can't start to extrapolate the information on the go because it's your business. But remember, to research is just the collection of information, get it all collected, and then start to synthesize it. So just be careful of synthesizing too early. Marketing data, and then evaluate any previous research. Maybe you have actually gone and interviewed some of these people, or maybe you decide afterwards to add primary research. All of that can be supplemental to this. So when it comes to reporting, you can take all that information. And again, going back to the intern who's doing this and having someone else do this allows for some objectivity and they're not going to start synthesizing the information, right? Because it's not their business. They're just doing a job. So sometimes that actually can help you, is to have a third party do it. And then they would put together this report. So your SWOT, your strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Remember, your strength and weaknesses, you could do 2 of these. So because you are investigating your competition, you could actually have two SWOTs. So you could have one that's a strength and weakness for them as you see it, and then opportunities and threats, and then also do a strength and weakness for you. So just because it has like one quadrant and this is what it's typical, don't just leave it at that. Really think through, and this is why thinking through ahead of time so you can delegate this task is really important. So strengths and weaknesses is an internal thing, but it also can analyze your competition. External will be what's going on in the industry, right? Are there threats? You know, inflation threats, maybe all of a sudden opportunities, maybe the downtown commercial area is going to have a whole bunch of funding and they need designers to refurbish the revitalization, the downtown. It's like, that's an opportunity. I've got to prepare for that. And so that's where this environmental scan comes in. And then the other thing, because we wanted to know brand positioning, we've decided we wanted to do this, we have to know where we fit. So where is the competition and where do we fit into it? There's a bunch of things to think about. There's a link here to find a whole bunch of different axes ideas, but the idea, figuring out what those 4 points are, is one of the harder things to do. And what you want to figure out, and basically it's where you're positioned. So the top and the bottom will be opposite, the left and the right is going to be opposite. And you can have multiple ones. So maybe you decide to have multiple maps. But for this one, maybe we decide that luxury and affordable, right? So is our competition fit into the luxury space, or are they into the affordable space? And put it and start to map that from the left to right. Are they traditional or are they trendy? And what's really nice about that, because they're very opposite, you can figure out where your brand story is because you're existing. And you go, okay, well, we're traditional, we're more on the luxury, but we're affordable. So where is your direct competition? And mapping it out on something like this is really popular and really good practice to do it. And again, you might have multiple different variants. You can use Miro.com or just map it out on Canva. It's quite a simple exercise. Miro just allows you to move things around and collaborate. The attribute ideas, which is like luxury and affordable, trendy and traditional, that link there is perceptualmaps.com. And I think they have 100 of them. It's insane, but it's definitely inspiring. But make sure it works for your industry, your business, and the goal of what your research is all about. So key takeaways, make sure that your sources are credible, relevant, and current. Always have a look when you're doing your research that it's not old data. And if it's old data, is it still relevant? Look at the research methodology, make sure that they're collecting information. This would be for the third-party stuff, that you're collecting a big enough sample size. Always make sure you cite your sources. Even if it's not a public document, make sure you document it, right? Just keep it for a future reference on where you found that. Look at patterns and consistency across the related research. And that's my biggest popular one to validate it, especially when it comes to marketing trends. It's like, well, all of a sudden, if they're all saying that, you know, it's more likely that it will be true. Doesn't mean it is, but those patterns and consistency will help. And know that all of this takes time. We talked about maybe getting some help, or at least dedicating X amount of time on your schedule to doing it. Keep your eye on your biggest competitors, not everyone, it's just your main guys. Be consistent with your research. Do this often, right? Like always stay on top of it. You'll be always researching. So if you have a way to document ongoing research, that's really good. And then periodically, if it's a campaign that you're going to do, if you're launching a new product, then make it more formal and more extensive. Have a plan. Why are you doing this in the first place? We mentioned document your findings. Look at the big picture when analyzing your findings, right? How is it fit within your entire business structure? So if you've done primary, are you working for that? Make sure you collect it and you look at your overall goals. So always, always strategic and holistic, and make sure you do implement those changes, or it becomes a waste of time, and you don't want that because time is money. So implement those changes. As mentioned, we have a whole bunch of links because this is part of what I do, is research prior to doing these events. And there's a few that came out, and the popular ones that I like to follow when it comes to marketing trends are here. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Social Media Examiner. I've got a couple in there. 2023 trends. They do an industry report. Hootsuite does a lot. HubSpot does a lot. So the list is there. If you want to learn more about secondary research, there's some things there too. ideamississauga.ca also has that market research link that I put in there. And it goes to a bunch of other links that may be missing from here. So definitely check that out. Academia, Royal Roads is just one that I found. It's there. Commercial research, that third party, they make money off of their research. Here's a few of them. I did put Mississauga Library in there. It is free with your library, so it's not a paid one. But Scott's Directory and Canadian Business Online is usually used for market research. It's a good one to understand your competition. And Brand Mention tools. There's a bunch of them in there. I don't know how many are free or paid, but there is a list at that blog for Brand Mention tools. And that's it, everyone. Secondary marketing research. Okay. I am going to stop sharing so I can see everyone again. Yay. There we go. Lots of information. All right. I can see questions. Jump in, say hi. Are you inspired? Who's done this before? Talk to me.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
I know.
No, but it's good. I guess we all do some, even if we're not consciously doing it. But then you get to see a comprehensive approach as you've done this meeting and previous one. One thing, and I'm sure you implied it, sometimes when businesses are looking for diversification, yeah, they're researching their market and they look at opportunities and margins, but sometimes they overlook the damage of their diversification can be to an existing part of their customer base. You're looking at competitors. You mentioned, so to take the hypothetical one, if you're a garden nursery, like your imaginary client, if you start going into another market, it may be that you're undermining, say, the landscape companies who usually buy plants from you, for example. Right. So if you expand your reach, you've got to be careful you don't damage an existing part of your business. And I've seen that happen quite a bit, actually. And sometimes it's just almost at a personal level, not me personally, but I remember one guy said we used to give tons of referrals to that other, it was private school for mild special ed. And they said they started competing with us. So we just stopped giving them referrals. That was crazy of them, he said. And we had a good relationship. And they called me one day and said, why not giving us any referrals? You used to give us referrals all the time. And the guy says, because you guys are competing with me and you never spoke to me about it, would have been nice, and it cost them. So it can happen.
Yeah. And that goes back to the point of thinking holistically. Now, the assumption before this research is that they've done their market research, like understanding that this is a marketing that this just didn't come out of the air, that they've thought through, like you said, Des, like, do we even want to do this? And how do we want to position ourselves? Because that's a positioning, what's the service offering? If we're going to do this, maybe they've decided to work with the landscapers and that's how they're going to do it. But they really actually still need to know the competitors. And this is just one of the pieces.
Can you focus on the competitive market? But the truth is, if you're a wholesaler, for example, which to some degree a garden nursery is, potentially a retailer and wholesaler, they may not actually fully understand what the customers do with the product they provide. That's part of it too, right? So if you're a plumbing fixtures company, well, I guess you know what plumbers do, but you might not, when you go to take a different market route or a new product range, you might not realize that, again, 3 steps down the line, you're actually competing with those people. Same sort of scenario, basically. But I mean, but you One would assume you know it, but I've seen people not see it and then have to pedal back. Even big companies make that mistake now and again.
So I like this because the research is just research. It's just information that you've sent someone off and you're bringing it back and you're asking them, how are they selling? What are they doing? Because what are they doing well? That information that you're collecting, you're going, wow, they actually are leveraging their landscapers as influencers and they're doing it well. It's like, we should do that, or we need to consider doing that, or they've got a bad reputation because they're overstepping. It's like, ooh, we got to remember not to do that, right?
Yeah.
So really, this is information.
Yeah, the financial benefit might be well outweighed by the unpleasant feelings created. But as you said, if you're also interviewing your customers and let's say these landscapers are your customers, and you're trying to figure out what you can do better for them as well as look at your competition, then of course in theory they would hopefully tell you, or you would learn or gain insight. But just a thought.
And that's actually an incredibly good point, because now you bring in all of this information. They really did want to just know how to position themselves. So they would say, okay, so we want to get into this market, but what's the best way to do it? So if it means, hey, I'm going to leverage all these influencers, then you're going to, okay, we have to do more research. So how do we leverage these influencers? It doesn't mean we're still not doing it, but let's make sure we, keep our customers happy and we leverage that and we do another round of research. So quite often that will happen, multiple rounds. Mostly it happens, as I have dealt with that with some research projects I've been on. It just opens up a whole can of worms, but the more information, the better, really. Then you have to be able to synthesize it. And I know we have, so thank you, Des, on that. Competition tools. What are competition tools? Is it that we see their social media and website and analysis, or there are tools that give us direct data to what's going on with the competition? There may be quite a few out there. If anyone knows any, let me know. The biggest ones that I have leveraged will be insights from the website data, right? Like your competitive tools within SEMrush, Moz Pro, all of those guys, because you can get a lot from what's happening on their website. Now, websites are the hub of everything, and we can start to see some social media, but also you can see, and I guess a lot of it's pulled from different things and what competitors are saying. I don't know if there's any specific tools, Asia, but I am actually going to look that up. I'm going to see and let you guys know. But I do for sure use Ubersuggest and things like that for that. But I'm going to check in the competition. How long should we get this data? How frequent is it each month? Oh, yeah, that's it. All depends. That second piece on how often we do this research, right? I believe that we always have to be doing our own data, right? Always tracking the trends. What are we doing and what are we doing well? That needs to be consistent. And then our competitors, quite often, you want to keep eyes on your competitors. Don't spend too much time. I think it's the beginning of the end if you spend too much time focusing on your competitors. It's just to give you a landscape when you're either launching a new product or you're going into a new market or things like that we mentioned at the beginning. Then you should do a competitive landscape and then just pay attention. I know if even Facebook in the background, I do believe there's even a little section where you can see who your competitors are. Ubersuggest lets you kind of keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye on it. So unless you're going to be intentionally doing something, don't intentionally do a competitive analysis. Just kind of keep your eyes on it. To find the right influencer, all depends. A lot of this depends, right? On Instagram, Facebook, it depends what your market is and who you are, right? If we mentioned interior designers, I know they hang out a lot on Instagram because it's a very visual place. So you're going to go check out Instagram. But you have to figure that out. There are places and tools where you can go and find influencers. It's very expensive though, but you can go and tap into the influencer market. Data from special groups in Facebook or general forums like Quora. Again, it depends. If you are focused on a residential market where you know your customers are hanging out, go on Facebook. If you're in the tech world, or you know where there's certain types of people that are hanging out on Reddit, go hang out on Reddit. You got to kind of do a cursory look and figure out where your customers are. Oh, organizing and cataloging your research. Well, I think I mentioned in the primary, but a tool that I've just started to use with the project that I'm on is called Condense. Oh my goodness, it's like the coolest tool ever. I actually don't know what the cost is, and I'm going to have to actually, oops, let me find the URL for it. I think it's this one. Yeah, here we go. A lot of stuff comes out of the UX world, user experience world, and I bet you there's a ton of them. But this is one that I have used and currently using on a project. It's Condense, and it lets you, it's more from a primary research. So you're going to actually bring in the video, it transcribes it. You can start to tag things, and then you can put highlights, and it'll actually push it together into this lovely little report. It's just super cool. But you have to pay for a tool like that. If not, just find out what works for you. Is use like a Google Drive and just organize your core raw research. The folders would be, you know, your final reports. Make sure you always have your permissions, things like that. Just organize it in that way. If you are going to be doing something where you start to want to do filters and sort things, make sure it's in something like a spreadsheet, not a Google Doc, because you can't really sort things in that way. But it can be as simple as just using that. If anyone else has other ideas, let me know. I'm always open. Influencer tool. Yes, reach out to me. I know Emily has a bunch of those influencer tools, and there may actually be a blog that we've done in the past. So just reach out to me directly, because I just don't have it off the top of my head with those. Influencer Hub rings a bell, but I can't think of it off top. Does anyone else know some influencer tools that they've used? And Emily is not here, and of course she would be the one. I think it was Influencer Hub. Influencer Marketing Hub. This is the one that comes to mind, but I don't know if it's just research on that, or it might be more. We've had a few actually reach out to us to see if we wanted to be part of it. They've just been very costly. So if you can't find what you're looking for, please just let me know. Des, do you have another question or comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it reminded me, as you know, I like to contrarian think contrarily. I think
Contrarily.
it's one of the things I remember the guy saying, and it seems so obvious for a startup, is when you're doing your market research and you don't see much competitors, that can get you very excited and you break into this new market. But it can also mean there isn't a market, there isn't a demand, or there isn't a profit to be made, and it's a vacuum. Because I wish I could think of a good example, but something we used to all pay for example, that now it's a given that it comes free. But you might look and say, well, people will pay for, I don't know, let's say a cover for their phone, but maybe all the phone companies have started giving away high quality auto boxes for free or something like that. That's not a great example, but you know what I mean, that there's a reason there's no competitors, and it could be there's no demand or there's no profitable demand.
Yeah, and the research, and going back to the fact of research is just research. So it's like, I haven't found any, but you have to also look at indirect competitors too, right? So it could be just somebody competing for time. It's like, so they don't want to do, and I'm trying to think who that would be in the garden center world, but really it could be time. Like I'm thinking even from a fitness, right? Renee, like it just, why isn't things happening? Well, now there's a competitor for someone's time. And how do I get back for time?
Actually, on this subject of landscape, was again another podcast I was listening to. One guy decided he would charge for all of their design plans, whereas they used to do it free as part of their, their quote, their pitch. So they would rock up to a customer's house, spend an hour, whatever more, then go back to the office and put together this great plan, and then send it to the customer. And the customer might buy, might not buy, might go to a cheaper option, whatever. So they decided, okay, we're only going to charge for it, but we're going to make it better than the free ones. And they actually won a ton of business, and they did. But the other most important thing is they stopped wasting time making pitches to people who maybe were going to go for the lowest dollar outcome, not the best quality outcome. So by making them put some skin in the game, they learned that they could actually build a much higher quality, much more successful business, and in many ways blow the competition away. So the competition are still running around giving free quotes and free designs, whereas these guys made it that they made it harder to become a customer and got better customers as a result. So the market research and figured that out. I don't know how.
And that's where it's the market research for sure, and that spends a lot of time, but not to forget much easier. It's not easier, but from the marketing piece, it's like, okay, so I just want to get better. I know my competition. Let's just focus on what they're doing from a marketing standpoint, right? Like, why are the customers going to them? What's the perception? It's not adding new products. It's just you trying to figure out what's happening in the marketing space. It could be as simple as that project's going on. It's like, and that's where you can get into that Ubersuggest tools. It's like, how come they're getting so much more traffic? Or how come people are talking about them on social media a lot more? Or, what is it? Is it because they've got more channels? Are they on the right channels? Are they posting more frequently? Is it the type of information they're posting on? Just choosing to focus in on that is enough, and something you probably should do quite regularly. Whereas we were talking about adding a new product, is a pretty intentional, big research project that I brought up. But those everyday marketing, it's like, what are they doing? How come they're showing up? What are they in, and it appears now we don't know behind the scenes if they're actually making a lot of money, because that's totally privy to them, but for sure we can actually pay attention, and that is worth documenting. Absolutely. To Stephanie's point, I would put that into, I think it was you that was asking that, put it into a chart and have a look periodically. Now, when you do things like Ubersuggest, that kind of competitive landscape, they will track it for you, and you can check into your dashboard, and it's much easier. You pay a little bit, but they will have an idea on what's going on. So definitely a tool I would recommend. Trends, Google Trends is that typical one from a trends standpoint. Then, Brand Watch is another one to sort of let you understand a lot of the marketing trends ones I've listed there, to see what's going on there. Industry trends, go into your industry research, and it will depend on what industry you're in for sure to see what's available. Resources for fashion, luxury industry, and consumption. I think if you go to some of those government ones, I know when I was going through, they have a whole bunch based on your NAICS code, right? So fashion industry, they had a bunch of them. If you're a fashion retailer, Retail Council of Canada, again, will probably have some stuff specific to those, but I know the government databases will often break it out in your types of industry. Customer behavior. Yes, thanks. Customer behavior. Yes. And within your industry, right? That's a lot of those insight tools. They're going to give you ideas and what's typical, where are they spending. Google Trends, things like that will also say what they're searching for. But go to your industry and find those research, because they will give you ideas. Right. I think I figured that's what that was. Primary research. So secondary gives you an idea of the full landscape, right? It's going to do those big commercial research projects. I know McKinsey does, they definitely have different focus, different buckets that you can do. And I do think they do retail. But just Google search for some of those and you'll probably come up with some ideas too. Primary is when you know the people, right? Those are your customers. That's when you're going to go in and really talk to them. That's the richness. Don't lose out on that primary piece, but it's the very close to home. You can do things like your Ipsos and things like that and tap into a market where you have a larger base. If you're doing, and I'm going to go back to primary, there is 2 platforms where we've just used on this project: Respondent, userinterview.com, and Respondent. I'll have to find it, but it's a place where you can actually find people to interview based on your criteria, and you have these screening questions, and it really works, but you've got to pay probably $150 an interview. So that's when it starts to get expensive. Whereas if you just go and talk to your customers, they might just do it because because they like you, or maybe you decide to do it in a more formal way and you give them gift cards or something, focus groups, right? But that gets into the primary. Oh, got 2 minutes. Wow, the time flies. Any other questions or any research projects that you guys want to jump into soon, or thoughts that where you're heading? Upcoming projects? No? You're just all going to jump out and jump right into research, right? Because we have so much time. I don't know about you guys. For me, it's like, I don't have time for that. So we have to, but we have to do it. So if you, even if you don't have time for big marketing research, know that it's there. If you are going to make a big change in your business, please do set some time aside for research. Even if it's an expansion or something new, please do it. Find a way to make it happen. And if nothing else, make sure you're collecting your own research, that you're collecting your data and you're putting it together. I know for me, for the marketing, I just have a spreadsheet and I have every month and I just track the trends because it's hard to go back. So just be intentional every month, going through your key data points and tracking that. So if nothing else, do that. Okay.
What do you have as your metrics for tracking your trends on your spreadsheet? So like, what are your columns?
Oh, for doing trends? Well, no, so it's not tracking the trends, it's tracking my data and then watching the trends. So it would be to that point. So it will be I have all my metrics down the side, and that's mostly my marketing stuff, right? Maybe I'm going to add a column in the bottom or a row in the bottom for competitors, which I've never done. Probably should, but again, I'm not a big fan of constantly watching the competitors. You do a scan and then you just be really awesome and serving your customers. You really want to focus on your customers, not your competitors. So as much as we talked about this was more of an intentional research. You want to focus on those customers. So you've got all of your data, your metrics down the side, you've got all your months across, and every quarter you want to bring it together and analyze it.
So what kind of data points are you looking at?
So website traffic. So all your channels, pick all your channels. And then you're going to talk about what kind of content you're doing too. So what's happening is, so for website, for example, I mean, some of them are vanity, but again, vanity with an analysis behind it is pretty good. So if I have, and I don't have an e-commerce, it's a whole nother world. Let's just talk service focused. Page views, you're going to have bounce rates, which again, you have to pay attention to how your bounce rates set up, how long people are spending on there, where pages they're going to once they're on there, where are they coming from? Because all of a sudden, if all of my customers or my visitors are coming from Singapore, it's not my market. What am I doing wrong? I better fix something, right? If everything's coming from Singapore. And I say that because it's happened. So, and then we kind of go, okay, so then what kind of content am I putting out? How often? So it's input, output, and outcome. So how often am I putting out a blog? What kind of blogs are getting traffic? And what's the uptake? And then you can also set up on your Google Analytics, which now is GA4, which is totally different, but it's still analytics. It's like, and then conversion goals. How many times, if I want them to fill out my form to contact me, how many times are they landing on that contact page? How many times do they fill out the form? So then you can start tracking your customer journey, right? And then you same with the social media and then email marketing. So those are kind of 3 key buckets for me. And then you start going, okay, so what did I, and then you have a section at the bottom where you're going to talk about what you did that month. It's like, okay, so I just ran a campaign to promote a program, or I just launched a new lead gen form, and you just make some notes around it so that you give some context. It's like, right, I went to a trade show and I handed out 100 cards. It's like, got it. Right. So now my sales and marketing are starting to align. And then at the very end, you just go, okay, so this worked well, this didn't work well. And then you could just document that within the spreadsheet. And then you could even have steps. Now from that spreadsheet, this is where it goes to Asana. So Asana is when you start to put things into action. So I'm analyzing all my data. It's like, okay, I got to make this happen. I got to fix this landing page. I don't know why this backlink is coming from Singapore. I got to get rid of it, and then you have a place in Asana where these are all your fixes. And that would be my recommendation. Does that help?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.